Our next guest is the executive director of the Indigenous Cannabis Coalition and editor and publisher of Tribal Hemp and Cannabis magazine. Please welcome Mary Jane Oatman.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Hello.
Hey.
Thanks for being on the show. I have to ask, is Mary Jane your given name?
It sure is. There's actually I believe 4 Janes in my tribal community, all enrolled in my same tribe.
Wow, that is, perfect branding, right? You were just given your future immediately. I love it.
Definitely. I get that question asked because of what I do, and but my long history of plant medicine love.
I love that. So I have to confess, when I went to your Instagram and I saw that you could download THC for free, at first I was like, wow, she's really advanced in tech. But then it's actually for Tribal Hemp and Cannabis magazine. Can you please tell us more about your publication and where we can find it? What is that all about?
So THC magazine, or Tribal Hemp and Cannabis, it's the nation's first and only print publication that is dedicated to what tribes are doing in economic development and reclamation of healing with plant medicine. I on issue number 8 now. It's been kind of a crazy whirlwind, but it is the education and advocacy arm of the Indigenous Cannabis Coalition, which is the 501c3 that I started to work on the protection of tribal sovereignty in state, local, and federal legalization efforts. And what's most important to me is really the preservation of Indigenous story of what's happening during this phenomenally historic time.
Yeah.
Now, you've talked in interviews about growing up in a community that respects cannabis during the age of Just Say No, which is very interesting. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, it was a very much something that we just had to embrace, because when I was in elementary school, my grandmother and my grandfather and our family's property was raided by the DEA and the Bureau of Indian Affairs for my grandmother cultivating marijuana on the Nez Perce Indian Reservation in '83. And, that was, right there as the Reagan administration was teeing up, the big DARE campaign. And so I had a lot of homeschool education, a lot of also, of course, the lived experience of being in a household that was where cannabis use was not hidden in any kind of a closet. And so I really felt like I had, a really unique perspective, now in 2020 and 2021, being able to unapologetically advocate for a plant that I know and have so much firsthand experience with.
Yeah. I gotta say, on a personal note, I love when it's called plant medicine. It just it describes it perfectly. It is medicine. That's the part that I think is so frustrating for people who use it, who support it, who want it legalized. It can help so many people in so many different ways for so many different reasons. So in addition to the magazine, you're also the executive director, as you said, of the Indigenous Cannabis Coalition. I know you mentioned it, but maybe some of us didn't catch it. So which nation do you represent, and what exactly does the coalition do?
So I'm a member of the Nez Perce tribe, and our prehistoric geographic and cultural territory occupies Washington, Oregon, Montana, and Idaho. Our current day and present day tribal government headquarters are situated in north central Idaho. So with that comes a lot of challenges. The religious ideology that pushes back against cannabis legislation. I mean, dang, our Idaho legislature didn't even want, fiber hemp cultivation passed. I mean, there was pushback against even agricultural development. So, being a member of the Nez Perce tribe, we are a very strong treaty tribe. And I have just always been raised with this really grassroots activist, these are our rights and we have to, fight for them on the, precipice of, we come from a lineage that went through a lot after gold was discovered in our homelands. And this was after a peace treaty was signed with the federal government that was like exclusively for our protection and for our permanent domicile in our homelands to live and enjoy our way of life. And a big part of the bargaining and negotiating of that treaty was our sacred smoke. Our treaty chiefs smoked all day long. They were smoking, they were turning down the government's tobacco, and they were making it very clear that not only are we going to discuss this really heavy contract negotiation, but we're going to do it with our wives. And took the treaty council back to their lodges and gathered the wisdom of the women and the elders of the community. And so learning about my history and learning about my ancestry has really been a big key to knowing that this is a part of my my DNA. This is a part of my biology.
Wouldn't it be great if the entire government did things that way? Just like smoked a joint. We've talked about this on the show before. Smoked a joint, then went home to whichever most open-minded, compassionate woman is in their family. Not a Karen, but like a Karen, Carin. Did anyone get that? Okay. That was a joke, kind of, but also a statement. David, you're on my side. So for those people watching this, listening to this, what is it that you would like people to know about the Nez Perce culture? And also, how can people, be allies to, the broader scope of all Indigenous nations? Like, what can people do to really support those communities?
One of the biggest things that I've learned, because I know a lot about my own tribal culture, being raised in a very traditional way, we are one of the last tribes that have the really strong treaty language for our exclusive hunting rights and gathering rights. And, that subsistence way of life off of our landscape and in reciprocity with Mother Nature, it never went anywhere. And so it's really frustrating to see so much of history has kind of trying to write us out, this erasure culture. What I think is really responsible for all citizens of the United States to do is learn a little bit more about the lands that they occupy, to learn a little bit more about whose homelands they used to be in areas where genocide, disease, had full effect and was, I guess you could say, successful. And in some of the other areas where our people were forcefully removed and left under trauma, learn a little bit about the creation story of those homelands. And I think that with that comes a more of a shared sense of responsibility of how we can all just be better human beings, how we can all do better for Mother Earth. And, we're like not promised a tomorrow, but we, a lot of times just feel like we live like we are.
How do you think that legal cannabis can help uplift Indigenous nations?
That's a really interesting one, especially after reading a summary of Representative Mace's new bill that just came out, because there's a really strong, component of states' rights in there, but it's usually the states and the tribes is where that adversarial relationship is more robust. But I do see federal legalization under this draft that I'm seeing now, where it has some language in there for growers, loopholes for growers where states or tribes that have not created any plan can do so under the USDA. So I see some solutions to some concerns that I've always had, because I'm here in Idaho. Idaho's never going to legalize, not without, we've had legislators say it don't matter what type of economic boost it will provide our state. So really the business side of them. So you got to realize then that it's like mostly religious. And so how does a tribe like the Nez Perce, who is one of the most one of the strongest treaty tribes in the Pacific Northwest, with some very strong Supreme Court backing around, taxation, trade goods, treaty resources. How do we navigate this complex bureaucracy of cannabis legalization in a state where it is completely illegal? I think that that's going to create some challenges. There are definitely some shining examples and models out there of state tribal relations that are the benefit of everybody, all citizens, when they negotiate goodwill cooperative agreements.
Man,
And
you
just
would
just
think
out of
that Idaho
curiosity,
is
wh-
ready to. I was just gonna say, you would think Idaho would be ready to be known for something other than potatoes. Like, I hate to. That's all I know about Idaho. I'm gonna sound like an
Well,
idiot
I
right
hate
now,
to-
but maybe.
hate to drop a bomb on you. Also, the birthplace of one David Gborie.
Oh.
I know, weird, right?
Well, Idaho. Remember being a kid and going Idaho? Like, Idaho. No? You don't remember saying that as a kid? Okay. None of my jokes are hitting. Thank you so much, Mary Jane.
No,
I
you're
appreciate
killing
the
it.
pity
You're very
laugh.
funny. You're doing very good. Keep
I was a
going.
kid thinking it was hilarious to say Idaho. I thought it was the most original
And then you
thing.
say,
and
no,
other people
Idaho.
said it.
I get it.
Yeah, Idaho and the whole, I'm just saying they should legalize cannabis. I'm going to completely turn the tables, change the topic here. According to your website, you work with your mom, which is so cool. What is that like? Does she think she's the boss? Like, what is that dynamic like working together?
Well, let's see, what time is it? It's 1:10. As of right now, she's currently still employed. She's quit on me 4 different times. Yeah, I'm like a horrible boss to work for, but she's got to understand, deadlines matter. You got to be on time. And so sometimes when I realize the dynamic of our relationship has changed so much since we started working in this capacity together, but we have worked together in the past before. We actually went to college together, 3 generations. My grandmother, my mother, and myself all graduated from a public 4-year college together. And then fast forward to like 2018, 2019, we all started working in construction together.
What?
Oh
This
my
is wild.
gosh.
This is also a sitcom.
This is grandma. This is OG grandma that went to federal prison for growing. She's still out there working right now. So that's what I'm getting ready to start up, is like Operation Grow Granny, because my grandma needs to be able to be made whole. She needs to be able to come full circle with having her own farm in the comfort of her, of her own space, without fearing that she's going to go to prison again. But right now, my grandma, she's gonna be so mad at me for shouting out her age, but she's 83 years old and she is still working in construction. I don't know if you've ever seen, the traffic control flaggers that are out there keeping people safe, keeping pedestrians safe. She's doing that right now as we speak here in Idaho. I just went up and saw her yesterday, brought her up some CBD medicine. I got one of my tribal farms gifted me with some of their CBD hand sanitizer. So all of my red feather products and all of my my amazing products, I usually try to share them with grandma, because she is a connoisseur and she uses it for medical reasons. And so she's kind of just trying to see of the different tribally owned and operated products, like what's working for her.
I love that. Grown grandma. We can get behind that, right, David?
Yeah. Yeah, are you kidding? Also, it's currently 2:12 where I am, and my mom does not work for me because I couldn't handle it. Love you, mommy. So I'm saying good on you. Good on you. So lastly, we are asking everyone, but what do you think the number one reason that cannabis should be legalized federally?
I think that it should be legalized federally so that we can liberate that sister plant. so that she can do what she was gifted to do, which is spiritual reconciliation. I think that at the end of the day, the most important part about federal legalization is that it will strip down the barriers so that people can give themselves some freaking permission to heal. I think that it's so interesting just seeing how people won't do something that they know is good for them because somebody else is telling them that they can't. And I'm like, you're a grown ass adult. You know it works for you. Do it.
Amazing.
Yes.
You're a grown ass adult. Legalize it.
Maybe that could be grandma's brand. Grown ass grandma grown.
Grown ass granny?
A
Gag?
grown ass grandma grown. Yeah, I mean, I know that's a weird acronym, but grown ass grandma grown? Sign me
I would
up.
smoke that. Sign me. Thank you so much for coming on. Guys, you can find her at Mary Jane _ Flower Girl. And yeah, once again, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us.
You're very welcome. And at indigenouscannabiscoalition.com, they can get that free THC.
There we go.
Nice.
Guys, download that free THC. Mary Jane, thanks so much.
Thank you.